So we will find the recording within Newbie Callers on Facebook or YouTube.
I will post it in Newbie Callers on Facebook. It will be uploaded to YouTube. I suppose I could.
Looks like I might be on track this morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Yolanda. And yes, I've actually figured out how to turn off I have to let people into the meeting, which is great, but it also means that I'm not aware of everybody who joined. And somebody's got background noise.
Not me. There's nobody awake.
Morning, everyone.
At the moment.
That could be my noisy air conditioner. I moved to a room that has air conditioner in it. So I will mute myself. But everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
Sounded like somebody chattering.
Phil, you live up north. Why do you need air conditioning?
It's hot as hell up here this week.
Down here, it's not that hot. It feels hot because the humidity is at 100%. Even though
Yeah, that's the problem. There's more humidity. Yeah. We're up in the 90s though, so it's pretty warm.
Oh, really? We're around 70.
I lived in Brunswick, Maine for a while, and I just love summer up there, both days.
Both days, yes.
Just before, somebody said they were going to change their name on their screen. How do you do that?
You see in the upper right-hand corner of your pic, when you run a cursor over your image,
yeah,
there's three little dots. I can't count.
Yes.
Yeah. Click on that. It'll give you lots of options, and one of them is rename.
Ah. Oh, okay. I'll do that then.
Yeah, I just renamed myself.
Especially since there are two Carols at least.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do that.
That's what this pre-time is for. By the way, it's showtime.
8:01.
8:01. So let me push this aside and officially say hello. I've given up saying good morning. We're about to start yet another Saturday session all around the world, and we have a guest speaker this week who is going to be talking about.
Hey, can we mute that? Can we mute that person?
I was looking for him. I got him, I think.
Who is going to show us how to time travel from the 60s and 70s to the 20s, and we're going to leave vinyl and digitize here. And Dick has been somebody that fairly recently has done a lot of this and has become very comfortable with it and wants to share his simple procedure. Without further ado, I guess we'll say, actually, I'm going to say, Jolanda, we can only see half of your video. Oh. You have a big stripe down the middle of it. Yeah. There, now it's all gone. That's much different. I won't say much better. I'll say much different.
I'm just out of my hair's wet from the shower.
Oh, I did that too, but I did it a few minutes ago. Where was I? I was trying to talk about Dick Otis from Virginia, and he's joining us today and going to entertain us, keep us stimulated, and share some knowledge and try and get, and welcome to questions and, what do you call those things? Questions and discussions. And then beyond that, Dan is going to be recording as usual, so you can go back and get what you didn't get before. Anyway, given that, Dick, why don't you take over? Because I'm just here.
Okay, so Don's asked me to teach you how to digitize records in 15 or 20 minutes. I can't really do that. But what I can do is I have a presentation that I'm gonna rip through in about 4 or 5 minutes. I'm gonna flip through it, and that presentation will be provided to you by Dan after the session here. And that's going to tell you all the nitty gritty things about how to get set up to get to the demonstration that I'm going to spend the rest of the time doing. So I'm going to share my screen here. If I can remember how to do that. All right. So there's a picture of Saturn. All right, can everybody see this okay?
Love Saturn.
Yeah, it's a nice place. So my topic is digitizing records, the art of cleaning records and converting them from analog to digital. 4 squared answers and round answers. I'm not trying to make you an audio expert here. You know, if you're an audiophile, this is probably not your brief for you. There are lots of ways to do this. This is just my way. There are many other different ways of doing this. Mine's neither better or worse. It's just the way I do it. So show you how I learned this. I got into this because my square dance mentor, Butch Adams, passed away in 2015 and left me 6,000 records. And so I started going through them and digitizing the ones I liked. So real quick, there's an outline here of what I'm going to cover. You can go back and read this at your pleasure. It talks about how to select a turntable, which is one option of getting a USB turntable, one option for getting things into. This is mine. It's an Ion. You can also use a regular turntable and an adapter. Audio Tech, this is one of many things you can buy. You can do a lot of research. Here's my Dual 1224 from the 70s, and it works really good. There's lots of sound editors. I'm using Audacity because it's free. You can get it for Mac and PC, and it works good enough for my thing. Downloading Audacity has gotten easier lately. If you have Audacity and you haven't downloaded it in the last 6 months or so, they have a new version out that is much better than the old ones. There's various file formats. I'm going to be working in MP3, which is kind of a universal coding format. It's a compressed format. There are other formats, and here's everything you need to know about them. Bit rates is important because if you don't select the right bit rate, then you don't get a really high quality CD. So I'm going to be using 192 kilobytes per second. I'll show you how to set that up. There's a whole process to setting up Audacity. And I will be happy to help anybody who would like to do this either during the thing or working offline. These are the interfaces. This is what Audacity looks like. The one on top is the PC, is the Mac version. The one on the bottom is the PC version. They're configured, they're laid out a little differently, but they all have the same controls. So there's a little learning curve, learning how all the controls work. And here's some gouge on how to do that. I will tell you one thing about configuring your Audacity. If you don't set up your sound output system before you start Audacity, then you won't see it in Audacity. So it's important to set everything up, then open Audacity. And now I'm going to give you some examples. So this was a record I had in my collection. It's a 50-year-old LP, 33 mil RP called Hallelujah. And this is a pretty clean record. So I'm looking at the beginning of the record here where I recorded it. And you can see here, this is where the needle went down before the music started. And here's where the music starts right there. And this is just like the little rumble you get from a needle on a record. It's never perfectly quiet when you're playing a record because the needle's vibrating against the plastic. So we're going to start dealing with how do we deal with the sounds that come out of Audacity. And I've got some examples here. I'm gonna put this aside and get my samples up. Just a second. We're gonna do this real time. So this is a recording I made off of a dirty record. And I wanted to show you what a dirty record looks like. So this is an old record that's been around for a long time. I'm going to zoom in on it with the zoom controls. Why am I having trouble finding it? There we are. Okay.
Is there a way you can make that entire picture bigger? Because that is extremely small on our screen, at least on mine it is.
Well, it's full screen on mine.
Yeah.
I can zoom in more though, if that helps.
There is also a way to increase the size of those tracks so you can see the amplitude a little bit differently.
All right. Is that any better?
That's,
yes.
I mean, I've got super high res screen, it's super large, so I'm not the one to be talking.
All right, well, I'm just going to play this about 3 or 4 seconds of this and let you listen to it. Hopefully everybody can hear it. So there's the needle going down. you could hear how scratchy it was. So this is all the scratchy stuff in the record. So sometimes when you put a record on, it looks like my first example where it's real smooth before the music starts. And sometimes it looks like this. And this would be a very hard record to work with. So what I do is I take it into my bathroom and I take a little liquid soap, some Dawn or soft soap, and I take my hand or a very soft sponge and I get it wet and I clean the record going in a circular motion on both sides, the patter and the sound and the vocal. I wash it out of water and then I dry it with a lint-free towel, and then I use my wife's hair dryer to blow it dry so that it doesn't have moisture on it. So that's how I clean a record if it needs to be cleaned.
Yeah, that's some sound now.
Huh? Many of them do. And after you clean the record,
This computer now.
then
Alan Aubrey needs to mute himself.
I got him. Thank you.
all right. So here's that same record that after I washed it. And all that stuff you were seeing before in here is pretty much gone down. It's not quite like the first record I showed you, but it's pretty clean right in here. This noise right here is the needle going down onto the record. So I don't really care about the needle making noise on the record when I put it down. I care about this area right in here, which is where the noise is. So this is the beginning of the record. And unfortunately, on the beginning of a record, you don't get very much time before the music kicks in to get your sound system. If you go to the end of the record, however, at the end of the record, this is where the music stops. And then as the needle goes to the outside of the ring, you get quite a big long string of music, of noise, before the needle comes up, which makes another big chunk of noise. So I usually start working in this area of the record when I'm cleaning it up. I'm going to show you, I'm just going to clean it. I've got another example where I've actually cleaned the record, but I'm just going to go through the process of cleaning it with you here. So this is assuming that you've gotten everything set up, you've learned how to get your record into Audacity, and you've made a recording, and now you want to make it sound better. So the first thing I do is, is there a question? I'll have questions and answers. I'll stay as long as you want at the end and answer whatever questions you want.
I think I'm just watching for people who are talking, so
okay.
I think that was accidental.
So the whole record looks like this. And I'm only going to be working on one end or the other. So I'm going to take this area right here and zoom in on it. Probably more than I needed to. And the first thing I do is I select the whole record. In my case, I use the Command A, which selects the whole record. You can also do it off the menu here. Select all. So mine is Apple A or Command A. That selects the whole thing. And then I go up to this effect menu. And that's primarily where I'm working with the records, is under the effect menu. And there's lots of effects that come standard with Audacity. And I'm only going to use a couple of these, even though it's a little overwhelming when you look at it. But the first thing I want to do is a click removal. Hey, Mac, I'm on a conference right now. I can't talk to you. Sorry. So click removal, which is right here, is going to take some of these clicks away. I just take the standard default, whatever it is. I played with these, but usually the default is just where I leave it. And I do an OK, and it's going to go through, and it's going to do a click removal. And you can see how it cleaned it up quite a bit, just with that one step. But I still have noise left here. I can play it. You can hear what it sounds like. So that's just noise on the record that you really don't want to listen to. And so how we get rid of this is I select the noise part here. This is not any of the music. It's just the noise part.
Dick, can I interrupt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there an undo there, so that, because you played it after the click removal, but you should have played it, I would like to hear it before the click removal if there's an undo on that.
Well,
if there's not, then next time.
Absolutely. We'll just go back here to dirty. All right. Oh, I don't want dirty. I want clean. Sorry. So the dirty record was before I washed it. I don't.
Yeah. No.
The clean record is after I washed it, but before I processed it. So that's what I was working with here when you asked your question.
Yeah.
I'll blow this back up again.
Oh, you might want to explain that the two waveforms are, one is left channel and one is right channel. And in square dance music, it's basically both the same because we're in monaural.
This is a stereo thing. So left channel and right channel, and there are ways of combining it and make it mono here if you want to. I could make it mono.
No, that's fine.
I usually don't bother. If you're working with any square dance equipment at all, you're working with mono. You're not working with stereo. So on the end here, where I just was, I'll blow it back up there again. This is why time goes very fast when you're doing this. So you can hear the crackles, you can hear some of the pops. Is that good? And so again, I'm going to take the pops out. I'm just going to select it all.
Great.
Go up in effect and say click removal. And if you watch it, you'll see them disappear. And then it sounds like this. There's still noise there, but it's much better. So the next thing I do is I select the noise. I go up here under effects and I select get noise profile right here, noise reduction. And there's an option here that says get noise profile. And I click that and it takes this as your sample noise. And then I go back to the same menu here, get noise reduction again. Now, if I say noise reduction again, I just take the defaults that come up in Audacity here. You can play with these, but I found the defaults are pretty good.
Do you want to do a select all before you run this?
I do. Well, I'm going to, no, I'm not going to do it before it because I want you to see what noise reduction does just to the noise. Okay. So I say, okay, here, it reduces most of the noise, but not all of it. And as he suggested, I'm going to select the whole file and I'm going to go back to effect again and go noise reduction. And I'm going to just hit okay again. And it's reducing that sample noise that I took. It's taken out of the entire program, and it's better, but it's not perfect because there's still a few little things left in here. But if you go back and look at the beginning of the thing, you'll see this is pretty clean. That had noise in it before. Again, this is the needle coming down, so I don't need that. I'm just going to cut that out with a little cut thing here. And so now I have a fairly clean thing, but it's not perfect.
I want to interject that.
Interject.
That the electronics are amazingly cool. That it takes a sample of the noise and it says anything in this whole thing that sounds exactly like that noise, get rid of it because I don't like that. And it's magic, and it's so simple to do because it does all sorts of complicated stuff. And just really emphasize the magic in it, Dick. It's great.
Yeah.
Go
Over the like 6 years I've been playing with records here, Audacity has just gotten better and better and better. And like I said, there's a lot of commercial products you can buy that'll do this. There's a lot of commercial plugins you can buy and do this. But for the square dance community, I think Audacity is just fine the way it is. I mean, we're playing normally through yak stacks, which are not the most audiophilic speakers in the world. They're optimized for voice, not for music. And so if you can hear noise from this thing in a yak stack, then you got pretty good ears. So this is almost perfect, but notice there's just a little bit left here. And if I'm going to be a perfectionist, and I try to be here, I'll just blow it up a little further. And then I'll take whatever I can see, like this little spike there. It's just a little spike, and I'll just do the process again. I'll go up here, and it's a repetitive process. You get the noise reduction, you get the noise profile. I'm just going to go ahead and run it again. Oop, didn't mean to do that. What did I do? Okay. Noise reduction, and it's really not getting rid of it for some reason, which sometimes happens, but not often. So I just get a little closer in here, and I get the noise profile again. I do a noise reduction. I'm just really down in the noise, so to speak, at this point. And that got it. So now I'm going to select the whole thing again and apply that change across the whole music selection. And you'll see, I mean, there's still one little thing here and one little thing here, but really when you play it, you really can't hear that. You go to the other end, it's pretty doggone clean. So I think this is clean enough for me, and then I'm going to output it. I'm going to export it as an MP3. So if I export this as an MP3, it gives me this is the metadata. I'm sorry, this is the name of it. I don't normally put these names on it, but just so I don't overwrite my files here. So I've got the maximum quality, and I'm going to go save. And here's the metadata. You can fill this out or not fill this out. This helps on your computer when you're searching for music. The music often looks at the metadata to find what you're doing. So you can put this data any way you want to. If you're going to do one side and then do the other side, it helps to set as a default so you don't have to type it in twice. Or you can just leave it blank, it's fine. And this will output, and I'll have a nice file. So here's the process file. And I just saved the file. I just opened it again in Audacity so you can see that it's all clean here. All right, so that's the process I go to, and here's what it sounds like when it's done.
Join hands and circle to the left, go walking around.
So there's lots of other things you can do in Audacity, but for just recording the records, this is kind of the end of my presentation. I will mention there's a new feature here in Audacity called Remove Voice. Where is it? Well, I don't see it now. There is a new feature here which will remove voice from a profile. It's not perfect, but it mutes it down pretty low. So having done that, is there any questions that I can answer? We go into question and answer section now and fire away.
And remember that you're probably muted.
Was that the vocal reduction button near the bottom?
Sorry, ask the question again.
Was it the vocal reduction thing at the bottom, towards the bottom?
Yeah, that was the one I was looking for. So if you have just a normal record that has a vocal in it, like you've gotten off of one of your iTunes or something you've recorded, that vocal reduction will take the vocal out of the music and leave the music. Although it does leave the vocal at a very low level within the music. It doesn't completely remove it, but it does a pretty good job of taking the vocal out of it. So if you want to use it to sing over yourself or as a hoedown, I haven't played with that very much. That's a new feature in Audacity that just came out.
So I haven't played with that feature, and it may in fact be a version of a tool called Spleeter, which has is a machine learning thing, AI, whatever, that has a couple of models which try to separate your songs into components. So if you ever come up against the song that you just have to have the musician version or the instrument only version of, and can't figure out how to get Spleeter on your own, holler at me and I'll see how I can help you with it.
So just a couple of comments while people are thinking of questions. As I was going through, I knew nothing about Square Dance Calling or Square Dance Records or anything when I started this process. And it took me like 2 years to sort 6,000 records into the label, and then start going through them and decide which ones I liked and which ones I didn't like. And which manufacturers I liked, which ones I didn't like. So there's a huge variance of difference, but there are a few records that you just can't go out and buy. I found one called, now I've lost it. All right, I found a special record that I really, really liked, and I went all over the place trying to buy it. There are many of the record manufacturers would rather that you bought their music than recording the records, just so you know. And the quality of the music, if I like Royal Records a whole bunch, the quality of their music is superb compared to any of these records. They hire a live band when they do their platinum every year, and the quality is great. But they're just some old records that are classics, or you just can't get anywhere else. That recording yourself. And I started doing this, as many callers do. Their local caller lets them call a couple of dances, a couple of singing calls, and they want to take that record and save it so they can practice. That's kind of how I started. But there's a balance between your time and buying the records. There are several record manufacturers like A&S Records who have a huge library of these things already digitally recorded, and I'd rather pay them $4 and get what I need done than take a lot of time to do it myself. I mean, this is a time-consuming process, so you should save it for those special records that you really, really want. The record I was trying to think of is called Thunder Road. It was made by Fox Records, who made a total of 3 records in their portfolio. If you go up in cedar.net, you can see it. I looked all over the place for this record and just could not find it anywhere. I finally sent an email to the guy that recorded it, and his daughter replied and said, "My dad said, just give it to you." So that's how I got that one. Great record. Are any questions on the process here?
Yeah, so this is Al. I have a quick question. So when you were exporting the MP3, there was an option to convert it to mono. Is there value in doing that? Is the file size smaller, or is there a reason to consider?
The difference in file size is if you do export a record in WAV, which is an uncompressed file format, stands for window audio something. It's a Windows uncompressed format. It'll be about 40 megabytes. When you output it as an MP3, it's about 4 or 5 megabytes. So a huge reduction in the size of the file because it's compressed. But when you compress it, it actually loses data, not a significant amount. All the manufacturers these days are actually out, selling you MP3s, not uncompressed file formats. If you up the rate that you, let me see here. I had a page on this. Let's bring it up real quick. Okay, so first of all, these are all the different formats. WAV is Windows uncompressed, and AIFF is Mac uncompressed. These are the 2 uncompressed file formats. MP3 and the newer MP4A are compressed formats, and they get them down. M4A sounds better when recorded at the same bit rate. So there's the caveat. And I talked a little bit about bit rates here. The default bit rate on Audacity is 128 kilobytes per second, which is okay. But when you record it, you can also, when you export it, you can also increase that rate to 192, which is a good place to be for square dance records and what most of the commercial records that you're buying from the vendors are recorded at. If you get, if you increase that to 320, technically you get a better recording, but you can't tell the difference, but it produces a file size twice as big. So it goes to like 8 or 9 megabytes for a file as opposed to 4. When I started doing this, I wanted everything to be perfect, so I did everything in WAV, and I slowly, certainly discovered quickly that I didn't have enough room on my computer for all the stuff I was doing. So I gave up and went to MP3, and I unless you guys are like 20 years old and have perfect hearing, I doubt seriously you could hear the difference in it.
You're definitely only going to hear the difference if you're listening to it through some really nice headphones or a hell of an audio setup.
Yeah. So I will say, when you're working with Audacity, if you work with a headset instead of the speakers on your monitor or whatever you're using for speakers, you will hear more in a headset than you will hear through any other device. So if you really want to get it clean, headset's the way to go.
Dan, I'm Dick, and a question for Dan. I have a whole ton of questions here. Let's see, where's a good one to start? Well, some are just comments. Well, yeah. Explain what metadata is. I know, but you mentioned it like everybody knew, and I don't think it's a household term.
So metadata is data that's associated with a file that doesn't show up on the file. So like all photographs, like JPEGs, have metadata in it off your camera, like when you took it, where you took it, what your camera settings were, all kinds of information about the file that's buried in the file, but when you open a picture, you don't see it. And music has the same thing. An MP3 file has data associated with the music about the music, but you don't hear it or see it when you play the file. But when you open it up in a QuickTime or some other function, then you can see the data. Does that help? That's a real rough description of it.
Yeah, I find it great on pictures if you want to identify when and where you took them. It's all that extra information that's hiding in there, and it's buried in the file. You don't need it, but it's there if you have to go looking for it. Next question. Trying to pay attention to you at the same time as writing. I can't read my writing. Several years ago, I did what you did, only I did it with only a couple dozen records. And one of the things that I found, that I did is I don't remember doing the noise profile and then the minute noise profile like you did. And that's really cool. I think I just did the general noise reduction. One of the things that I did do took a lot of time, and I don't know if it's something that you wanted to add to make total perfection, is at the very beginning and at the very end, after the part that's just not music but just noise, there's a feature in Audacity that says just eliminate everything, make it totally quiet, totally blank, give me a totally flat line. I actually like yours better because it really did seem to cut everything off and send it through the whole
The problem
thing.
with what you're suggesting, and I started that way as well until Bill Harrison, my mentor, beat me up about it. That gets rid of the noise in the beginning and the end, but it does nothing to the music. So what I did takes the noise out of the music itself. So you're not hearing the rumbling and the popping and clicking as you're playing it.
So I just learned that, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
What I did also was I trimmed them so I had 3 seconds of silence before and 3 seconds afterwards. I think that's what records normally do, I'm just pointing out that you can cut it to any length you want of the intro and the exit.
You can, and I was going to talk about that, but I didn't. Let me see here. I had a sample of like a commercially, like Royal Records does a platinum version. Here, let me just pull it up real quick. Purchase music, premium packages, Royal. I'll just pick one at random here. All right, let me share my screen again, and I'll show you if you buy music, what it looks like when it shows up. So again, this is one of Royal Records' platinum things, and I'm gonna blow it up so you can see. They don't leave a lot of room at the beginning. I mean, that's it. You hit it and it starts playing almost immediately. And at the end, where you're talking about, Don.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a bit, because it doesn't matter when the music's over, they leave a little tail here, but not much. So part of the problem is when you're recording records, if you cut off this tail and the lead in before you do all the noise reduction, then you can never go back and do the noise reduction, because you have to have this extended period out here at the end to get your noise sampling to take the noise out of the thing. If you got a really, and this is a very, very clean file, as you can see, there's no noise at all here as it rolls off towards the end.
I just learned that from you. It's really good.
Yeah. So
your noise is a good friend when you're trying to eliminate it.
Right. So there are other things you can do with Audacity. If you have a record with like a skip in it, it's going along and it skips and there's a noise. Since most square dam records are repetitive, you've got your different sections, or even in the patterns they repeat through the thing. You can actually clip a part out of one of the records and move it over and paste it over the jump and fix it. So you can actually repair records that are really, really beat up if you really want to spend the time doing it. It's kind of like editing photographs. You can get carried away with it.
Hey Dick, I got a couple of questions. First of all, can you add some lead-in time? You say royal, just you drop the needle and you get music. Can you add a
I can
add a section before that? And second of all, can you talk a little bit of your lash up between the record player and the computer?
I can. So yes, you can add as much time as you want to on the beginning or the end or even in the middle. You can take the WAV file and you can double it and make it twice as long for pattern work. And I will talk about your other question here. So you can, most people don't want to spend a lot of money getting set up to record records because they're not going to do a lot of it. And so the cheapest, easiest way to do that is to use a USB turntable. And here's a link, which is everything you need to know about USB turntables. This website just has got tons and tons and tons of information on USB turntables. It does a comparison between them. It gives you price comparisons. It talks about the important thing is ceramic cartridges. So most USB turntables, most of them come with a ceramic cartridge, and there's no amplifier in the turntable. It's just the needle vibrating against the record that creates the sound that you're recording. And the problem with that is you get a lot of distortion and you get a lot of record wear. So I highly encourage you not to get a USB turntable with a ceramic cartridge. There are a couple. Ion Audio and Audio Technica are some of the best manufacturers on them, and they all have a moving magnetic cartridge and a built-in preamp, which is what you want. So this is my USB. It's an old Ion, USB 10. They don't make it anymore. They make newer ones. And on the back of it, it's really hard to get to. There's a little amplifier with a turn knob, and as I turn that, the waveform and the audacity goes up and down as I'm recording. So this is how I recorded all my music. Another way to do it is to get an analog turntable. Analog turntables can cost hundreds and thousands of dollars, so you don't want to run out and get one just for this. But if you're an audiophile and you really want to have perfect recordings, you might want a better turntable. But if you already have a turntable, you can buy this adapter device. I got this from Sweetwater. The best one here is about $100, so about the same price as a turntable. But then you can hook up your really expensive turntable to the computer, and this is like the amplifier that you can do all kinds of adjustments. It's a little harder to use, but it creates a little bit better sound than just using a USB turntable. And here's my USB turntable. So I can use this turntable instead of the USB if I want to. Does that answer your question?
I have a question, Dick.
Yeah.
Was the click removal done on the entire history or just the tail?
No, I do the click removal is an automatic function. There's no sampling of it.
Okay, so it did the entire time history then.
Yeah, so you just do select all and do the click removal. There are some controls right before I said just accept the defaults. You can increase the magnitude and the width and stuff. I mean, you can fiddle with that, but the defaults I have found pretty much always remove most of the clicks.
Okay,
yeah. The clicks and pops are what you get from old records. That sound.
I mean, those clicks are going to be within the music, so you want them removed out of the music itself too.
Right.
So, yeah, we were having a private discussion arguing about it.
And just a little hilarity over this. A few years ago, my wife found a bunch of old cassette tapes. And so we recorded some of the cassette tapes into the computer. And I was taken right back to the 80s. Now, I've bought modern CD versions of some of this music, but there's something about all of the flutter and wow that the cassette tapes put into it. So if you start recording old records, you might find yourself taken back in a very visceral, experiential way to old music that you just did not expect at all.
There's a difference between a really good stereo system record playing and a digital thing. And if you're a perfectionist, then the record is always going to sound better than the digital. But if you're
I
playing,
still have audio tapes.
huh?
I still have a slew of audio tapes.
Well, cassette tapes don't sound as good as records, but they have their own different sound, and it was that different sound that I was drawn back to. So that hiss and pop can bring up things that you bring up cool memories that the clean music won't.
And of course, one of the problems too with audio tapes is if they're old, the sides bleed to each other.
So I have posted a link to Dick's slides in the comments, and I will obviously post those along with the video as well.
Hey, Dick, I got another question. Can you play with any MP3 file, or is it like Adobe where you make it into an MP3 and you can't break it open without the software? Can you work with any MP3 file? And let's say you bought one from Royal, can you change it around if you want to?
I can, yes. Yeah, an MP3 file. I mean, they're not encrypted, or like you get if you bought something on iTunes and you can only use it on iTunes because it's got encryption built into it. Not the case here.
Let's see, getting back to my list. One of the things when I started doing this, I wasn't using any calling software, so I didn't have a tempo adjustment that I wanted. But if you know the tempo you want beforehand and don't need to adjust it now and then, Audacity will allow you to adjust the tempo also, which is
also the pitch.
And the pitch too. The tempo was the only thing I was concerned about, it, but also the pitch. So I set all my, recorded them, cleaned them up, and then set them all to 124.
So instead of doing it within Square View, you're doing it ahead of time and putting it in the recording.
Now, yes, that's what I did. I don't recommend it if you are using Square View or Square Desk, because now you can do it on the fly and you might want it a little different depending on the group, etc. But at the time, I was just playing off of an MP3, off of an iPod, which is still sitting here. Whoops. Get rid of the glare. There we go. This has my music on it. And so I couldn't adjust speed or do anything. I did work out a way to do pseudo looping with it, but that's time for a different discussion. But I did set the tempo beforehand in Audacity. So if you wanted to have something, say in your phone, just to have along and without a special player, but just the straight music player, you could, Audacity would allow you to do it. I think it's better. Dick will probably confirm or deny this, but it's better not to do it and do it on the fly with the calling software that you're using.
Right. So I like Don. I'm a Mac user, and of course, Square View only works on Windows. So in order for me to call, I run an emulator. I run VM Fusion on my computer, so I could run Windows 10, so I could run Square View. But I do all my choreography and everything on the Mac side. But if something happens, and your Mac dies, and you need to play music, I have all my music, or much of my music, on my iPad, and I selected about 10 of my favorite pattern calls, and I did just what Don said. I set them at 124, and then I downloaded them onto my phone, and so I can just plug my phone into the Hilton amp and play what I need off the phone. And in fact, when I go down to Pride Resort, Tony Oxine and Jerry Story often come in for their workshops just with their phone and plug it into their amp and play it that way. The problem with that is you can't really adjust the speed and the tempo and the pitch on your phone. You can, however, on an iPad. There is an app, a free app called Tempo Slow Mo, TMPO space SLOWMO, and it will allow you to tap into your iTunes library and set loops and markers and adjust your pitch and your speed and just about anything you could possibly want to do. It's a little bit more tedious than in SquareView, but it does work in an emergency if you need a backup.
And I just downloaded that after talking to Dick a few days ago, but haven't had a chance to play with it. Speaking of apps on your iPhone, this is one that I've found totally useless, but interesting if anybody uses a turntable. There's one called RPM that you can, I think that's the name of it. You can just stick on your turntable and your phone goes round and round and it'll tell you the RPM that it's actually turning at.
Okay.
Interesting hack. Oh, speaking of Macs, this is something that you might like to know, Dick. While you were sharing your screen, you were also sharing all the clutter and all the icons and things on your screen.
Yeah, I didn't go to full screen. I should have gone to full screen. Sorry.
No, not only that. There's a really cool app that sits in the menu bar, and it's called Hide Background. I think that's what it's called. No, it's called Hide Me. And you just click on it, and it just eliminates all the icons on your desktop. And then you click it again, and it brings them all back. Or you double click the desktop, and it'll bring them all back.
Cool.
Yeah, I like it for presentations like this.
As you know, the Mac has multiple desktops that you can switch between.
Right.
Almost unlimited. I use that feature a lot. I'll set up a window with the SquareView, and then I'll set up another window with my routines, and then I'll set up another window with all the files I'm using, and I can switch back and forth in an instant.
I'd forgotten that feature. That sounds great.
I believe Windows can do that too.
Dan, just for to let you know that, I noticed with the synthetic background on Zoom, I frequently have a black space above my head. What it's doing on yours is your headphones are popping in and out. And sometimes they're there and sometimes it's not. It's quite entertaining.
I clearly need to wear or set up a green screen and wear some green clothing.
Yeah, exactly. On a much more related to what we're talking about, Dan, you mentioned Spleeter?
Spleeter. So it is probably what is now built into Audacity.
Can you spell?
SPLEETER.
SP.
Just as Carol mentioned it in the.
Okay. And
it requires a little bit of nerdliness to get running, but it's pretty amazing for extracting vocals out and giving you just the audio track.
My question is, can you extract the music and just keep the vocal?
The vocals have a little bit of artifacting on them, but they're there. If anybody wants to play with this, give me a holler. I love playing with this kind of stuff.
What's it called again? One more time.
Spleeter. SPLEETER.
Okay.
It requires some nerdliness. If you aren't comfortable with, if the phrase running Python from the command line scares you, this is probably not your tool. But if that doesn't scare you, then it's probably pretty cool.
One of the things that I've been wanting to do for years and for caller training, and we're drifting from the recordings MP3s, but this got me very excited if I could isolate the voice, is in trying to help a caller sound better. In other words, using the music in your patter presentation rather than just having it be noise in the background. If you could isolate the sound, just have the voice and the music, and I've done this with stereo equipment where I've recorded voice on one and music on another, but not in a long time, and it's not a convenient thing. But if you can isolate the music and voice and then just drop the music down so we're only listening to the voice, I feel that if you can listen to only the voice and tell what the music is in the background, at least tell where the beat of the music is, and if nothing else, tell and preferably know where the phrase of the music is, and even a little better than that, know where some of the chord changes are because of the way your voice is using the music. You could do a lot of good training that way. And that's why I'm excited that if you could isolate and use the voice part, it doesn't have to be good quality, but it has to be good enough so that you can hear it without much of the music.
Well, for the sake of that training too, it might be worth, if you can record just the microphone input.
Yeah.
You can usually get the modern hypercardioid mics get very little of the background noise. So
no,
yeah, it's amazing how much you can extract there.
I know you could set it up that way, but especially if you could take something that was already recorded, you pulled, somebody sent you here's some music from my dance I'd like you to critique, or go to this YouTube channel, I'd like you to critique it. If I could separate them and separate the voice, listen just to the voice, not the music, it would be really helpful.
So real time, on the Hilton 220, there's 2 outputs, one for the music, one for the voice. So you can actually record in stereo with the music on one channel and the voice on the other channel, and then you can isolate that perfectly that way.
Yeah. My last question for you, Dick, is I haven't used Audacity in a long time. You said there are a lot of new features, or it's a lot easier to use. That's good to hear. Can you give me some quick examples?
I can. So it used to be that when you wanted to download and install Audacity, you had to download other files to go with it, because they didn't have the license to use it. So you had to install Audacity, and then you had to go install a couple other files. Let's see if I got notes here on them. I think I took them out.
I did that too long ago, so I guess I don't remember that project.
Yeah, there were multiple files that you had to load to make Audacity work. It's to be able to output it as an MP3. There was a lame encoder and an MP3 encoder, and you had to download Audacity. Then you had to go download these other files before you could make the system work properly. Now, when you download Audacity, it comes up and everything is perfect. There's a lot more features in it, and one was the voice recording. I was just playing with that offline while you guys were talking about it, so I could do a demo if somebody wanted to stay around and do that, to remove the voice, and you can see how it works. But
yes, please do.
Okay, I'll try that. Hang on just a second.
While he's setting that up, you were talking about music slow-mo. Is that what it was? Anyway, I know Chris has been using something slowdowner. What was the name of the thing you used, Chris? On your phone?
I used Amazing Slowdowner, but when I started using it, it was free, but it's, I think you can use it in a limited way for free, and then they ask you to pay for it. So, but it does a similar thing. It changes the tempo and can change the pitch, and actually can loop if you want to set it up so that it does that.
All right, you guys want to try this? I have no idea how this is going to work because I didn't pre-try it. So here is.
What are the red lines?
Okay, the red lines are clipping. So there's a feature in Audacity when you're recording that if you record it too loud, I didn't talk about that part of it. I probably should have. So see the scale here? It's a 0, 0.5, 0.1. When you're recording, you want the waveform to basically be between the 2.5 things with the peaks going up to maybe 0.8. That's how much strong you want the input coming into it. If you go above 1.0, it clips. It clips the sound out. And so Audacity has a feature in it that I had turned on when this was done that says if there's a dropout or clipping in the music, it marks it with a red line. So this is not my recording. This is just right off of Royal's thing. And this one is pretty strong. You can see how some of the peaks are getting very, very close to the top and bottom of the thing here. So this is recorded very loudly.
Side space, grand square. Who's gonna fill their shoes? Who's gonna stand that tall?
So that explains a lot. This is one that they did for Caller Lab with all the callers in celebration of, well, not celebration, but for the death of some of our callers. I'm going to just go ahead and run the voice reduction and see what it does. So I'm going to select the whole thing, go up here under Effect, and go all the way down the bottom. Voice reduction and isolation. And I'm just going to take whatever the defaults are here, because I haven't played with it, and say OK. And I have no idea why all the red showed up. Sorry about that. And I will play it and see what happens. So in this case, it did a pretty good job of removing Jerry out of the song. Sorry about that, Jerry.
The issue is it created a lot of hyper squeaks. You can still hear a couple of fill backs in, but where it's dropped the voice, where it hits the modulation pitch the same as the music, it drops at it and creates that hyper squeak, that high pitched mouse squeak that you get in the background when you drop that out.
Pretty amazing, though.
Not perfect, but it's pretty amazing for one click.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Not, you know, you probably wouldn't want to use that for calling, but for practicing or getting an idea, what have you, it's pretty amazing.
Well, you wouldn't have this music unless you bought it, in which case you'd have both tracks anyway.
True.
Speaking of that, I have a quick question, which could probably be a whole discussion unto itself, and that's basically around copyright. So you own these records, or you have these records, and you're making MP3s of them. My understanding is that's okay because you own the records.
Yes,
but if
the record.
But if the record were, let's say, no one could get anymore, would it then be okay to share that MP3? And I'm sure this is a whole nother discussion, but just wanted to touch on it.
I'm not an expert on this topic, but I feel very strongly about music rights. So I buy all my music or I own the record. Like I said, I had about 6,000 records and I kept about 300 of them, 300 or 400 of them, and I gave the rest of them away, which was hard to do, by the way. People didn't want to take them. And so I have in my warehouse, you know, in my storage area, I have all the records for all the music that I have on my computer. I do have some music that I got from other callers because I wanted to listen to it and see if it was something I wanted to buy, but I don't use them to call. I use them to see if that's something I want to go out and buy.
So, to the specific question of if that record is no longer in print, copyright law still forbids that. There is question over if you did republish that, who would come after you, because the rights to the music are broken up into the mechanical rights of the original composer and performer, or I mean the original composer, and then the performance rights of who recorded the particular recording that you're using. And so even if you get the performance rights for distribution, so even if that that old publisher says, yeah, you know, I don't care anymore, you can't get that music anymore, give that away, the mechanical rights may not have been paid for extra distribution to the original composer. So you kind of have to deal with that separately, and I'm happy to talk with people about what I know about that and what my sources are for knowing about that as much as people want. So who's next?
I'd just like to make a comment about stuff that Dick talked about earlier. As far as doing this with the records, yes, it is very time consuming. Trust me. It's almost worth not doing it and getting the MP3. You can get them from dosido.com. There's a lot of old ones there. There's various sites that you can get them from. It all depends on how much time you really want to spend on this, because it is, like I say, very time consuming.
I think Dick said that correctly in the first instance. If you have records that you cannot get anymore, those are the ones that are worth doing. If another recording artist or a studio or an organization has them and has cleaned them up, for the cost of $6 as opposed to 4 hours doing a record. Depending on what it is, $6 is definitely worth it.
Yeah, when I first started, I mean, I didn't have anything, so my choice was digitize the records, and it was painful.
Yeah, I digitized hundreds of records back a long time ago. So
If you go back and listen to them, you'll probably wish you could do them again.
well, for some of them, I kept the original files just because if the technology got better, I figured, well, maybe I could clean them up better. But
So would you guys like to hear the singing call that I went out and couldn't find anywhere and the guy finally gave me that I love so much?
Yes.
I really love this song.
One of my favorites.
Here we go. I'm sorry, you can't hear me?
We can't hear you. We see your lips moving, but don't hear you.
That's good because it was embarrassing anyway. So
I assume you were just singing along, right?
I was just singing along, yeah. But there's a phrase at the end of each of the figure sequences on here. There's an extra 4 beats built into the music, which is really nice timing wise because it gives the dancers a chance to recover and it makes the pattern go really, really smoothly. So that's one of the things I like about it. I don't know if I can find it real quick. Probably not, but I'll try. That extra little beat in there at the end of each phrase really makes it easy to call to. I took this down to Pride Resort in North Carolina, where they made the movie Thunder Road, and I did this at Pride Resorts. And one of the ladies came running up and said, "I was there when they made the music, the movie. This is so cool." It's just a neat song. All right, any other questions?
I was given that record in Germany.
I wanted to hear you sing.
Dave Prescott, because he said he had a hard time hitting that low note, which was odd for Dave Prescott.
Well, I'm a baritone or a bass. I'm not a tenor, which makes square dance records hard for me because most of them are written as tenors.
I've noticed that it happens to be noon here in the East Coast.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to make an official closing and thank yous, and then a bunch of us will probably hang around for hang around more. But anyway, Dick, thank you very much for your presentation and for fielding questions. I think we had a lot of good questions that people came up with, that people were interested in what they were doing. As usual, Dan, thank you for the engineering in the background. And as usual, thank you for all those that came here and making it worthwhile for us to go through the efforts to put this on for you guys. If nobody showed up, it wouldn't be worth it. But the
It was a real honor to be included. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And with that official sign off, and now let the fun begin. Any topic, go for it. If you don't mind, Dan.
Lay it on. I can always, this week I will remember to mute myself when I walk away from the computer.
I guess you learned the lesson the hard way.
You can kill the recording too, Dan, if you wanted.
Can I ask something?